Close your eyes for just a moment, before the first frame even appears, before you see a single cobblestone or hear a single siren. Just breathe, because what you are about to step into is not just a city. It is a living, breathing contradiction. A place that was torn in half and stitched back together. Not with thread, but with graffiti, with jazz, with the smell of fresh bread at 5 in the morning, and the ghost of a wall that once divided an entire world. This is Berlin, and today is yours. You are not a tourist here. Forget that word entirely. Today you are someone who woke up and decided to let a city speak to them. And Berlin never shuts up. It whispers from the gaps between old bullet holes still visible on Baroque facades. It shouts from the neon signs of a kebab shop at 3 in the morning. It hums from beneath the streets, where the ghost of the U-Bahn rattles past stations that once sat abandoned in the no-man's land between east and west. Berlin does not welcome you with open arms the way Paris does. It does not seduce you like Rome. Berlin throws open its back door, looks you up and down, and says, "So, you came. Good. Keep up." And you will, because today you are going to walk this city the way it deserves to be walked. Not with a map, not with a checklist, but with your senses fully open and your willingness to be surprised turned all the way up. The morning is cold. Even in summer, Berlin mornings carry a metallic crispness in the air. Like the city is still clearing its throat. The sky above is that particular shade of pale gray that Berliners somehow find beautiful. And by the time this day is over, you will too. Let's begin. It is 6:47 in the morning, and your alarm did not wake you. The city did. Maybe it was the distant clatter of a tram, or the soft mechanical groan of a bakery shutter rolling up below your window. Either way, you are awake. And that is exactly right. Do not reach for your phone. Sit up, place your feet on the cold floor, and just listen. Berlin, at this hour, sounds like a city that never fully went to sleep, because it did not. Somewhere east, a DJ is still playing to a room full of people who decided that Sunday morning is simply an extension of Saturday night. But out here, in your corner of the city, there is a fragile and precious quiet. Hold it for a second. It will not last. Pull on your jacket and step outside. The street is nearly empty. The light is low and golden at the edges. The sky is still undecided between night and day. Start walking east, and do not take the U-Bahn yet. This first stretch belongs to your feet. Notice how the neighborhoods change texture as you walk. The ornate Grundersite buildings of the late 19th century, their facades, still showing the pockmarks of the Second World War, stand next to brutalist GDR blocks claimed by Ivy and street artists. This is not contradiction here. This is just Tuesday. Head toward Volkspark Friedrichshain. At this hour, it belongs almost entirely to dog walkers, cyclists, and the occasional sleepless soul sitting on a bench with a thermos. Walk up toward the Märchenbrunnen, the fairy tale fountain, built in 1913. The stone figures of Cinderella, Hansel, and Gretel, and Little Red Riding Hood look out over the still water with an expression that is somehow both whimsical and melancholy in the early morning mist. Stand, eerie. Watch how the pale light catches the edges of the stone figures. This is a Berlin that most people never see, not because it is hidden, but because they never woke up early enough to claim it. Now walk back towards because you need coffee. Real coffee. And more importantly, you need a Schrippe. A Schrippe is what Berliners call their bread rolls. And the word alone tells you something about the city's character. Not a beera, Techen, not a simile. A Schrippe, crispy on the outside, soft in the middle, completely perfect. When it is fresh from the oven, find a traditional bakery. Look for the ones with steamed-up windows and a short queue of locals still half asleep. Order a Milchkaffee and a Schrippe, one with butter and one with monkeys. A poppy seed quark spread that sounds strange and tastes like something you will dream about for years. Take your coffee outside. Find a step or a low wall anywhere you can sit and watch the street wake up. Watch a cyclist stop, buy a roll, eat it, standing up in 30 seconds, and ride away. Drink your coffee slowly. Let the warmth move through you. This moment, this specific unrepeatable moment, is just yours. By 9 o'clock, you are ready for the city's pulse. Take the U2 from Frankfurter Tor heading west and get off at Alexanderplatz. Everyone goes to Alexanderplatz. That is exactly why you should. But do not look up at the Fernsehturm, that needle of socialist ambition stabbing the sky at 368 meters. Look at the people instead. Watch the commuters pouring out of the S-Bahn entrances like water from a cracked pipe. Watch the tourists spinning slowly in circles. Phones rise it. Watch the older Berliners who walk through all of this as if it does not exist. Because for them, it is simply the place they pass through on the way to somewhere else. Now, do something counterintuitive. Walk away from the center of the square. Walk north, toward the Rotes Ruthaus. The Red Town Hall, named not for politics but for the red brick it was built from in the 1860s. Find the terracotta frieze that runs around the building like a visual history textbook. Find the panel showing the departure of Huguenot refugees in the 17th century. Berlin was, even then, a city built on waves of migration. It has always been made of elsewhere. From here, cross toward the Nikolaiviertel, the oldest surviving neighborhood in Berlin. The guidebooks often get this wrong. The Nikolaiviertel looks ancient, with its narrow cobblestone lanes and medieval church spires, but most of it was reconstructed in the 1980s by the East German government, which wanted to give its citizens a sense of historical continuity. What you are walking through is a sincere, earnest recreation of a past that was largely destroyed, and somehow that makes it more interesting, not less. Walk through the lanes. Notice the smell, slightly damp, slightly mossy, the stones holding onto the cold. Run your fingers along the walls. The roughness of the stone is real, even if the reconstruction is not. Now leave the Nikolaiviertel and walk along the Spree. Cross the Museumsins bridge and pause in the middle. Look left, the Berlin Cathedral on one bank, the Humboldt Forum on the other. Look right. Watch how the light falls on the water in long broken strips of silver. This is what Berliners call Berliner Luft. Berlin air. There is a 100-year-old song about it that describes the particular quality of this city's air as something fizzy and electrically charged, full of possibility. Standing on this bridge with the cold wind cutting across your face, you might start to understand what they meant. Your legs have earned this. Make your way to Marktale Noon in Kreuzberg, a 19th century iron and glass market hall where the vendors offer a compressed tour through the world's food cultures that is deeply, unmistakably bare. Order the currywurst. Yes, it sounds like a tourist cliché, but there is a reason this city has a museum dedicated to a sliced pork sausage doused in curry-spiced ketchup. Currywurst was invented here in 1949, in the rubble of a destroyed city, by a woman named Herta Huer, who had obtained ketchup and Worcestershire sauce from British soldiers and had the inspired, slightly mad idea of mixing them with curry powder and pouring them over a sausage. It is a food born from improvisation, from scarcity transformed into something generous. That is Berlin, on a paper plate. Take it to a high table by the window. Eat standing up, the way it was meant to be eaten. The sauce will be slightly sweet and warm. The sausage will be snappy and honest. The bread roll on the side will absorb the extra sauce in exactly the way you need it. Wash it down with a Berliner Wies. Order it without the sweet syrup and taste it plain. Sour, slightly weedy, bracingly cold. Napoleon soldiers reportedly called it the champagne of the north. And while that may be a slight exaggeration, on a mid-morning in Kreuzberg with the market hall buzzing around you, it does not feel like one. Sit with the sound of this place. The languages overlapping: German, Turkish, Arabic, English, Vietnamese, the clatter of the espresso machine, the laughter from a table where three older men are having what sounds like a deeply important argument about something very minor. This is the sound of a city that has never had the luxury of being homogeneous and has been richer for it. If the morning was about movement, the afternoon is about slowing down. Walk to the Tempelhof Field. Tempelhof is one of the most extraordinary places in any capital city on earth. It was once a major international airport, built partly under the Nazi regime in the 1930s, and it operated until 2008, when Berliners voted in a referendum to close it and convert it into a public park. The terminal building, one of the largest structures on Earth, still stands at the edge of the field, vast and silent. The runways have been taken over by cyclists, kite flyers, barbecuers, and urban farmers. What does it feel like to walk onto a runway? It feels like walking onto the moon. The scale is wrong in a way that your brain takes a moment to process. Too wide, too open, too flat, with the city skyline visible in a complete panorama around you. The wind comes from far away and arrives with authority. The sound of the city softens to a background murmur. Cyclists pass with a worry sound. A dog barks somewhere distant. Find a patch of grass just off the old runway. Lie down. Look up. The sky over Berlin is enormous. Without mountains or high-rises, immediately overhead, it simply spreads above you in every direction. Pale and wide and clean. Clouds move across it like slow thoughts. While you are lying there, consider this. The terminal building beside you was the landing site of the Berlin airlift, when American and British planes flew supplies into West Berlin for nearly a year, defying the Soviet blockade. A plane landed at Tempelhof every 3 minutes at the operations peak. 1. American pilot began dropping chocolate bars attached to handkerchief parachutes to the children gathered below. He became known as the Candy Bomber, and in a city surrounded by the machinery of conflict, the image of chocolate falling from the sky became something people held on to for the rest of their lives. This city has had to hold on to things. It has had to rebuild itself, over and over from almost nothing, and every time it has done so differently, messier, more experimental, more open to strangeness than the last time. If you find that something is rising in your chest right now, some feeling you cannot quite name, half sadness and half awe, then you are feeling exactly what Berlin wants you to feel. And if you are someone who comes back from a day like this wanting to go deeper, move slower, see further, then this series was made for you. Subscribe and join us every week, because that is exactly what this is. A promise to go deeper every single time. The light is changing. You can feel it before you can see it. A warmth that was not there an hour ago. A shift in the quality of shadows. Make your way to the Teufelsberg, the Devil's Mountain, on the edge of the Grunewald forest. The Teufelsberg is the perfect symbol of Berlin. It is not a natural hill. It is a mountain made entirely of rubble, the compressed, buried ruins of over 400 buildings destroyed. During the Second World War, the Allies had so much rubble that they piled it all up, buried an unfinished Nazi military college under 25 million cubic meters of wreckage. And over decades, the grass grew over the debris, and the hill became a place where people skied in winter and flew kites in summer. On top of it, the Americans built a massive Cold War listening station, a cluster of white geodesic radomes that looked from a distance like something landed here from another galaxy and decided to stay. The station is now abandoned and half covered in graffiti. But you do not need to go inside. Stand at the edge of the hill and look west as the sun descends. The sky begins to change colors that seem to belong to another climate entirely. Deep amber, pale violet at the edges, and at the horizon, a stripe of rose so clean it looks painted. The forest below goes from green to black, the radio towers across the landscape blinking their red warnings as the dusk deepens. Berlin spreads in every direction, its skyline low and sprawling, lit from below as the first streetlights come on. The wind up here is cold and fresh, and it carries a last trace of the day's warmth. Stand in it. Let it hit your face. Behind you, someone has left flowers at the edge of the old listening station. You do not know why. You will not find out. This is one of those small mysteries that Berlin leaves scattered for you, not to be solved, but simply to be noticed. The sky deepens. The city below is lit now in amber and white, a vast, dark plain of light. The day, which began with a bread roll and a cold walk through an empty park, has brought you here, standing on a mountain made of memory, watching a city that has been destroyed and rebuilt and divided and reunified and reinvented so many times that it has stopped being afraid of change. It has simply become change. You are back in the city now. The streets have shifted tone completely. Evening has arrived with a warmth and looseness that the morning did not have. Restaurants are filling up. The smell of charcoal and garlic drifts from open kitchen windows. Laughter spills out of bars. Groups of friends gather at corner tables with glasses of wine, unbothered by the cooling air, wrapped in scarves, and animated by conversation. Find a seat somewhere. Anywhere. A bar, a cafe, a bench in a square. Order something warm. And think about the day. You walked through a park where fairy tale figures stood in morning mist. You held the warmth of a bread roll on a cold street. You stood on a bridge and felt the particular electricity of a city rebuilt from nothing. 3 times over. You lay on a runway and looked up at an enormous sky. You stood at dusk on a mountain made of rubble and watched a new world light up below you. That is 24 hours in Berlin. Not the 24 hours of an itinerary. The 24 hours of a city that asks something of you. Your attention, your patience, your willingness to feel things you were not necessarily planning to feel. Berlin will not tell you it loves you. It does not operate that way. But it will, if you give it the chance, make you feel quietly and permanently that you have been somewhere real. Somewhere that costs something to build and costs something to understand. As you sit here with your drink, watching the evening deepen around you, a question will probably begin to form. Not about what you saw today, but about what you missed, because you did miss things. Entire neighborhoods. Stories, flavors, the contemporary art museum you walked past without entering, the canal path you meant to follow. And that, perhaps, is the truest thing about this city. Berlin is not the kind of place you see. It is the kind of place you keep going back to, each time finding an entirely different city hiding inside the one you thought you knew. So here is the question I will leave you with tonight, as the city hums and glows around you. If you had to return tomorrow and spend another day here, knowing everything you felt today and knowing how much you still have not touched, where would you begin? Think about it. Sleep on it. And next week we will do it all again. Somewhere new.